Let's talk transparency. Senator Kennedy, yeah, the one known for asking the questions everyone else dodges, just shook up a Senate hearing on government secrecy. He basically asked, why does the government keep dodging Freedom of Information Act requests, and what's it gonna take to make agencies actually cough up the truth? Here's the problem. FOIA requests are meant to keep the government honest, but both sides, Democrats, Republicans, doesn't matter, drag their feet and stall.
Thank you all for being here. I listened to all of you with great interest. Professor, do you believe that people respond to incentives?
Thank you, Senator. I do believe that people respond to incentives.
Do you believe that what you allow is what will continue?
I suppose I do.
I listened to all of you talk about enhancing affirmative disclosure requirements, strengthening the presumption of disclosure. I listened to you talk about consultants. I listened to you talking about the need for a public interest balancing test. But those can be ignored just as easily as every other part of the statute. Why don't you just create personal liability for the person responsible for turning over the document?
Certainly, right? Senator. There are systems, other jurisdictions around the world that do have, in fact, personal penalties for government officials.
Do you recommend it for us?
I don't think that we're at the point where we necessarily have to take such a step in order to drastically change the incentives that agencies...
Why not?
Kennedy called out the bad faith delays. The experts, Kwoka, Howell, Epstein, they all agreed agencies can ignore deadlines and there's no real punishment. So why hasn't anything changed? Good question. Kennedy's answer? Go after the people, not just the agency. If a bureaucrat illegally withholds documents, make them personally liable. Not just a slap on the wrist for the agency, a real consequence that hits their wallet.
I mean, all administrations stall and restall in turning over documents to the American people, don't they? Does anybody disagree with that? It's not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. It's an executive branch thing, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I do not disagree with that. It is.
So why don't we hold the people responsible, personally responsible? I'm not saying not afford them due process. You may want to require bad faith with a reasonable, not an impossible definition of bad faith. I mean, if you want to solve this problem, why don't you just create personal liability, Mr. Howell?
I think that's a terrific idea. Right now, the mechanism to have liability is basically an attorney's fees, and those are rarely given out. So the government really is never forced to pony up.
Well, the employees don't care if the government gets hit attorney's fees, do they?
Correct. And that's why the Department of Justice is willing to tolerate us suing them 100 times. We all pay for their lawyers.
Look, we can write and rewrite statutes all we want, but it is clear that people in the government are not responding to Freedom of Information Act in bad faith. Sometimes they need more time, but I'm talking about in bad faith. That's clear, and it happens on both sides. So instead of just rewriting new laws and new rules that they're going to ignore, why don't you just hold people personally responsible? What about it, Doctor?
And you know what? The experts didn't even push back. Imagine if blocking FOIA requests could cost you your paycheck. That's motivation. But there's a catch. Executive branch officials love to claim immunity. You can't sue me. I'm just doing my job, Kennedy shot back. There's already a rule out there that lets judges punish agencies for bad behavior, but surprise, no one uses it. So is this personal liability thing even possible? Or will red tape, loopholes, and legal shields keep things just as murky as ever?
I actually fully agree, and I would point out that there's a mechanism in the FOIA statute currently where if it turns out that there's evidence of an agency or an agency employee intentionally withholding documents without a reasonable basis, a judge could, in issuing that order, make that finding.
And when's the last time that happened?
Almost never.
Yeah, it hasn't happened in the history of ever, has it?
Yeah,
No.
Yeah,
and
that's
until
right.
Congress makes it very clear that we're serious about it. We're going to be equal opportunity pit bulls here and say, regardless of who's running the executive branch, you have an affirmative obligation to turn over documents. And if you don't do it, you're going to be personally liable. That's going to work, isn't it?
Well, I would hope so. Of course, as you know, as a former law professor, there are issues with, the executive branch claiming immunity for these employees.
I'm not saying deny them due process.
Right.
Here's why this matters to you. Every time the government hides documents, it's your tax dollars, your rights, and your trust in the system on the line. Whether it's COVID origins, election security, or what Congress is spending your money on, you deserve answers. Period.
I'm not saying an ordinary negligence standard. I am saying that if some person is being an obstructionist, and you can prove it, they ought to be held personally liable. We wouldn't have to do it for long.
White House.
I still had 9 seconds left. No, I yield my back. But I do want to say Professor Whitehouse has some interesting thoughts about orders that he and I have talked about, so I'm going to listen to him carefully.
Senator Kennedy has predicted my line of questioning.
So, will Congress finally step up and make transparency more than just a buzzword? Or will bureaucrats keep playing hide and seek with your freedom? Drop a FOIA now in the comments, hit subscribe, and let's keep the pressure on. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, but someone's got to open the blinds.